Good afternoon. Yes, can I have your attention, please? Can I ask every facilitator of the working group on stage to present the results? Do we have Prem here from AIPP? Yes. Griffins? Do we have Griffins here? Yes, come on stage, please. Do you have Yanis here? Yes, here. Already here. And do we have Fazl and Sasha? Please join us on stage.
So how are you organizing this? Did you just give us like 5 minutes?
So we're all here. So I would like to start with from the breakout session number 1 about the environmental challenges related to poverty and natural resources management. And Prem, can you do a quick overview what you discussed and what are the results? Thanks.
Thank you very much. The outcomes from our group's topic was environmental challenges related to poverty, natural resource management, including sustainable food systems, food security, ecosystem services, halting biodiversity loss. So the outcome of our group was, we identified that the situation that we are in requires wide, deep transformation. Despite so much talk of transformation, the realities of our lives as well as global assessments tell us that we are nowhere close to the transformation. Climate is deteriorating further, biodiversity loss is increasing, water resources are getting depleted, number of people in hunger is increasing, more and more people are endangered by increasing population. Except few bright spots like renewable energy, move towards banning single-use plastics. Many of these sustainability indicators are regressing to the extent that none of the countries are in position to achieve all the SDGs goal by 2030. And the prospect of halting biodiversity loss and reaching near net zero emissions seems too far. There is narrative being built that emissions and material resources footprint are rising in developing countries and emerging economics. However, the reality is that still there is huge injustice and inequality in carbon emissions. Richest 50% account for 86% of global emission, and per capita resource consumption it's 13 times more in high-income countries as compared to low-income countries. We need to address that immediately. We also identified that the fundamental reason for lack of progress towards sustainability and transformation is that we are not addressing systematic issues, inequality and concentration of wealth and power in pure hands, and gender and social injustice, lack of balance among 3 pillars of development with undue focus on economic growth, lack of regulation of business and corporates, and especially those based on resource extraction, lack of human rights perspective in development discourse, and lack of political will to address these. False solutions and contested concepts via geoengineering, climate smart agriculture, circular economy, ecosystem service, etc., which are nothing more than business as usual, are posture and passed off as business unusual. We also identified that solutions already exist, but economic framework, logic of immediate profit, and lack of political will and incentives to real solutions keep us away from solutions and transformations. Most affected are the poorest in low-income and developing countries, including women, farmer, indigenous peoples, other socially, economically, and politically marginalized communities, and communities affected by the disasters, loss of land, and other livelihoods. Unfortunately, these are the people with most sustainable lifestyles and minimum ecological footprint. We understand that people lead conservation frameworks, particularly governance of natural resources, ensuring secure land and tenure rights, and nature-based livelihoods, promoting sustainable small and family agriculture, banning hazardous chemicals and pesticides, implementation of international frameworks and treaties, including UNDRIP in letter and spirit, can be some of the actions respecting rights of the peoples and the planet. We also observed extreme concerns that references to international treaties and international agreed standards are fast disappearing in the proposed resolutions in the UNEA. We urge all the governments here that we must not lose the sight of core concerns of reducing energy and resource use, where industrialized countries most of the leadership and commit resources, which alone can take us transformation and sustainable world. Thank you. These were our outcomes from our group.
Thank you, Prem. If you could now take it down to 3 very concrete sentences that people should remember, what would that then be? Thanks.
Yeah, the concrete points were, there are lots of environmental challenges, and those environmental challenges are just not only affecting to the health and all, but those things are also affecting to the lives and livelihoods of the people, and those peoples who are politically, economically, and socially marginalized. And the environmental challenges, environmental issues are not being the issues of human rights, and the people who are being affected from environmental challenges, they are not only being challenged because of the environmental pollutions, environmental effects, but they are being criminalized, they are being always kept away and ignored from different systemic process where they should have to have the effective and meaningful participations in terms of decision making, and in terms of recognizing, respecting, and acknowledging their good practices.
Very good, thank you. Now I will give the audience the chance to ask questions and have a discussion. Show me your hands if you want to ask a question or make a comment, please. Yes, please.
My name is Ken Mwathe. I work for BirdLife International. I was in that group. One of the elements that we said could be used as a solution, could be proposed as a solution, and should be proposed as a solution, is the role of ecosystems and biodiversity in addressing the issues that are at hand, the challenges. Ecosystems and biodiversity are cross-cutting. They're beneficial for people, for their lives, for livelihoods, addressing climate change, land issues, and so on and so forth. So that should be central when it comes to solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to comment on that, Prem? Or?
Yeah. Yes, that we had agreed. Thank you for adding.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Yes, please.
My question is, since there are a lot of issues faced with the NGOs, how can faith-based organizations support in the alleviation of poverty and other issues regarding the environmental effect to the society as a whole on the planet Earth? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Yeah, the faith-based organizations, they have also really very good contribution to address the environmental challenges, because as being myself from indigenous communities, we have also some spiritual beliefs and practices on those in terms of protecting and promoting the natural resources. And of course the faith means the religious beliefs and all that are really very instrumental and very good contributing factors to the environmental challenges.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Yeah, please.
Thank you. I was also part of that group, and there was a discussion that with related to the environmental challenges and food security and poverty. There is a discussion on that. There is a structural issues related to that, and which is neoliberal paradigm and profit greedy corporations have been brought in such kind of policies in line with the IFIs and organizations like WTO, that without dealing that structural issues, the environmental challenges which related to poverty or any others cannot be resolved, or for that we need some political decision. Political will is needed by every aspect of the stakeholder, particularly by the nation states. So that was one of the major discussion we had.
Thank you, Wally.
Okay, we will have a later on chance to ask more questions, but I would like to move on now to the life cycle approaches. And Griffiths, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I would like to share some of the summary of the discussions we had in this group. Mainly we were looking at issues around the resolution which are on cluster 2, mainly the marine litter, microplastics, chemicals and waste management, and also single-use plastics. So just in summary, some of the aspirations or comments, inputs given by colleagues in this group was the one on the area of, for example, hazardous chemicals. There's need for UNEA to take a decision to have a mandate that will, address something towards legally binding clauses or instruments to address particularly hazardous chemicals in products, and also pesticides, stemming from what was also discussed in one of the presentations yesterday. I think the argument was the issue of, the poisonous nature of highly hazardous pesticides. So some kind of a way to have restriction, legal aspect to address that. The need to ensure that there is a life cycle approach to ensure that waste pickers, for example, are all those in that value chain of waste management at the end of it are not displaced as a result of these resolutions or policies, but they are also, included, and they are all recognized in terms of the value chain approach. So also on the issue of chemicals, particularly low awareness to those who are using these chemicals, the need for support toward consumer education as a component in every in every industry, that especially with respect to issues of toxic plastic, chemical effluent, and other waste creating or becoming products. Also, they need to have the UNEA to take a decision on the need to extend responsibility of producers. In this case, for example, stopping the what they call, for example, illegal dumping of products or materials that are near end of life. So that also that include improving capacities of low-income countries in dealing with the type of these, for example, various types of waste, especially plastic. There was also a suggestion to have a specific guideline on the issue of at global level on wastewater treatment, which is an idea which was shared by one of the colleagues. Also, they need to have, for example, life cycle approach will be used to inform investment decisions and policies, and ensure that they take into account the impact of social and environmental products and infrastructure over the full value chains. A focus of end of life fails to address resource scarcity and other environmental issues. Rather, waste needs to be designed out of production, promoting repair, reuse, and refurbishment. The concern also on the issue, for example, plastics, the health impacts, consideration of the health and all other impacts that should include plastics and microplastics themselves, and the toxic additives throughout their whole life cycle, particularly the disposable plastics and the gendered burden of waste being generated, necessitating a mandate to classify disposable PAD waste as either solid waste or medical waste, and conservative action for processing and collection. I think that's all for now. Thanks.
Thank you. If you could pick one new idea that needs more attention in the future and we should focus on more, what would you pick? Thanks.
Yeah, so from the discussion one, the mandate of some element of having, dealing with the hazardous chemicals in products and also pesticides, that's one. Consumer education for those who particularly using farmers at the local level. Also the issue of, the life cycle approach to informed decision in investment decisions. I think that was also one key, and also policy action to ensure that they take into account the impact, both social and environmental, that these investment have on the products and infrastructure and all the value chain. So those were the key 3 points that we can take into the common statement.
Thank you very much, Griffins. So moving on to the group number 3 with innovative sustainable business development. Oh, sorry, yes. Excuse me, yeah. If you have questions, please raise your hands.
Okay. Thank you very much, Reverend Rachel, Anglican Church Environmental Network. I wanted to ask about microplastics, because I don't see anything about microplastics. Is it not time that we call for a global ban on microplastics that are being used in products such as toothpaste and face wash completely unnecessarily and are just ending up into the food system and into the marine life? So the question is, can we not ask for a global ban on microplastics? Thank you.
Can I respond? Sorry, I missed on that. I think that was an idea, one of the points that was we raised, that doing this, to have a global agreement to address the issue of microplastics and plastics, actually, because that's also one of the discussions in the resolutions that is ongoing now. So I think we emphasize the need to have a coordinated approach through a globally binding or sort of coordination, something that is restrictive in a way that is legal elements incorporated. So that's also another point which was there. Sorry, I missed to read that.
Thank you. Do we have other questions, please? Okay, now we can move on to the topic number 3, which was innovative business, sustainable business development. And Yanis, please.
Thank you. Thank you everyone who participated in our group. So we had some lively discussions, and I was trying to, at the same time, facilitate the discussion and make notes. So this is what I have noted. We stressed the need for the strong regulation from the government side, also for the use of economic instruments, but even more for enforcement, because many of the regulations are very well designed, but not really enforced on the governmental level. As well as the need for the business to participate in these solutions, and NGOs to be as a watchdogs in this process. So one of the messages was to don't let the money control the discussions, but also keep the business within the process. So this is kind of the challenging task which we identified. Governments also should set up the framework to support innovations, but not only technological innovations, but also social innovations, and social innovations could be even more important if we want to ensure the societal changes. Government's role would be also to ensure the frameworks for the know-how exchange and things like that. New business models, which are actually part of the social innovation, should look at finding new ways, or the old ways, or different ways for the business ownership models, which could be more community involving and stakeholder involving. Green and socially just international trade rules could also be good innovative social innovations. Connecting consumers and communities, which would provide their provide for their needs and not wants, as well as supporting the consumer awareness on more sustainable choices and behaviors, as well as some of the social innovations which are part of the circular economy approaches, like moving away from owning things to sharing and using services. So all these kind of initiatives could support the more sustainable and less resource-intensive economic models. Then we also stress the need for involving youth, women, and indigenous peoples, using their specific knowledge as well as values to shape the business models. This would mean changing business approaches from existing extractivist economy to more regenerative, reproductive one. This would also mean moving away from efficiency as a main kind of indicator, which actually means less damage, to doing more good. So looking at how we can actually provide for people's needs and not just trying to minimize the impacts all the time. This should include prioritization for sufficiency and resiliency, preferring small and decentralized solutions with short feedback loops and localizing of economic cycles. Aim of the business should be to improve equality, eliminate poverty, and create resilient livelihoods instead of creating jobs in fragile globalized supply chains. At the same time, ensuring that at the same time we eliminate environmental pollution and degradation. Social enterprises were recognized as some of the good examples which are actually existing and well functioning in many of the countries, which actually are doing this job very well. But there is a need to support these kind of enterprises that they get more support from the governments in doing what they are actually doing. Then one of the messages was also that the technological and business models are good only if they actually are replacing polluting technologies and polluting business models. So we recognize some of the technologies which are like fracking and use of hazardous chemicals, which we actually have to eliminate. We have to not make more efficient these processes, but eliminate these processes. And I could guess you could keep this list adding more technologies and business models which are not very sustainable. Then at the very end, we understood that we have to come up with something UNEP can actually do also in this process. And just one very small but maybe interesting idea was for next UNEA tomorrow and day after, we will have this science business policy interface, but maybe we have to come up with the community and policy interface, as a new way on looking at where actually policy should focus on. So thank you.
Thank you, Yanis. A question, besides of efficiency, what is the main role of technology within the innovative business development?
We didn't talk about so much about the IT technologies and other technologies which are coming in our daily lives very much, but I see that technologies can also be used for community involvement and for all these kind of positive elements which we actually expect from economic activities. It's not just increasing profits or increasing the power for some of the people who own the technologies, but that's why we have to have these technologies which are available, which are decentralized, and keep these business values which we listed also apply them for the technologies.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Questions, please. Yes, please.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I heard that the social enterprises need support and technology. I am the CMO of a startup that is invited to UNIA called iumra.world. Its main effort is to offset the carbon footprint in pilgrimage. So how is it possible that we can work with the NGOs in terms of technological innovations? And we are speaking on the 11th on harnessing the big data and artificial intelligence, because NGOs can be supported by startups. So we want to find how is it possible and feasible that startups can work with NGOs across the globe in offsetting the carbon footprint and other pollution for the environment. Thank you.
Do we have more questions? Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, my name is Gadir. I'm from Bolivia, part of Reacción Climática and coordinator of the CBD Alliance work on the CBD, Conventional Biological Diversity. First of all, thank you for all the points you mentioned. I think they're very important, especially in regards to social innovation, not only technological innovation. And my question is more in regards to these global spaces we're working on. And we see, at least in the Conventional Biological Diversity as civil society, that there's a strong intervention of big companies and big private interests that are co-opting these spaces in several ways, because they have resources, they have interest, but there's clear conflict of interest. And I don't know if the group has addressed a little bit of that in terms of this UNEA meeting and how we can address as civil society this co-opting of big interests into these global spaces, and especially environmental spaces, when we see a clear conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Yeah, I mean, we didn't discuss these questions in the group, so this will be more my position on these issues. So if other people from the group want to join in, then you can also comment on this. But I think for NGOs there is a strong role in not only watchdogging the government or the businesses, but also being as kind of first runners and trying out different social innovations and different alternative business models, and experimenting with all these approaches, also connecting businesses and the communities so that the business approaches or the solutions are actually meant for or in connection with what the communities are actually expecting. So I think there is an important role for NGOs to be involved and to participate in these processes. As regard to the other question about the big companies kind of co-opting the environmental discussions and using their resources for that, I totally agree. And I think this is also shows that these businesses see maybe the threat or the opportunity for themselves to use this situation. So maybe it could be also something good that they actually recognize and recognize also the need for the change for themselves. But we have to be very very specific on the roles of the businesses, not to overtake these processes. I mean, business is just a tool for supporting some kind of needs, human needs. It's not the aim. It's the same as economic growth. It's not the aim by itself. So if we can use this business as a tool, but in most of the cases, it's mostly focused on profit, increasing profits. So this is, in many cases, clashes with the community interests. So, I don't have a solution for this, but yeah, this is a problem we have to recognize working here.
Is there someone from the working group who wants to add something to that? Or another question? Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, Luigi Bozzi, International University Network on Cultural and Biological Diversity. We strictly follow the CBD and FAO and other meetings and bodies. So, a structural problem. We discuss here about science, about policy, but what about the preparatory meetings here in UNEA? This morning I went to to the office, Science Division office, to ask about the preparatory meetings for the tomorrow meeting. First of all, they are closed meetings only on invitation. I would like to know more about these invitations, for example, because if civil society don't participate in these preparatory meetings and in the setting of these events, no way to raise a voice. Second, in relation to science policy is at the top of the agenda. In our organizations, we have developed many years ago another concept that is a science policy society, communities. But even taking into consideration these issues, there are no movements in the UN bodies around these broader areas of interventions. Last, in relation to economy, we are trying to develop a new concept, and of course, human rights-based economy is one, but of course, we need to raise voice even in relation to the resolutions. We discuss only about the draft resolution related to circular economy, but anyway, I suppose there is a room to raise a voice on the concepts and the theoretical and methodological approaches to these concepts.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree that participation in preparatory meetings and also now, I think half of the group is following in the working groups the process. I guess this is where the decisions are made, and we have some rights there to speak, especially if the chair is very positive for major group involvement. And business is only one of the major groups, so it's they have the same. They should have at least the same rights as science, or NGOs, or youth, or women, or other major groups. So. I think UNEP has this framework. It's a different question how it's implemented and how it's organized, like with all these parallel forums. So I don't know if I answered to your question, because it was many questions, I think, in your intervention. But yeah, this is my response.
No, sorry, I am discussing about the preparatory consultations to the science policy events scheduled tomorrow and after tomorrow, because we know very well, policy is not only resolutions.
Okay. Yeah, I got it. I thought you speak about the general. Yeah, I'm not involved. I'm not the right person to respond to this. I haven't been following the science business policy discussion.
Okay, thank you. So let's move on to Fazal and to hear how is it going with Paris Agreement and the SDGs. Thanks.
Thank you. We're in group number 4, looking at progress in the implementation of the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals. So I'd like to start with thanking the group members for great discussion, and we came up with 3 key messages. So at the start, we looked a bit in the background on coming up with the Paris Agreement and the SDGs itself, the 17 goals. And we came up with the 3 key messages. These are on multi-stakeholder engagement, which was actually mentioned a few seconds ago, and then supporting environment and means of implementation. And the third one was on creating or strengthening tracking and reporting mechanism for both the NDCs and SDGs. So to start with the multi-stakeholders engagement, this we discussed on ensuring engagement of multi-stakeholders in all levels, international, regional, and national level. And one level, we look at the VNR process, the voluntary national review processes, within the high-level political forum, where we, as major group, need to be provided a better chance to react when the reports are being presented. but also in terms of being engaged in the presentation itself. And this linked with the national process, where the countries, we actually have more than 50 countries presenting this year. So the national process should ensure that major group and stakeholders are involved in the process of coming up with these reports, and should be part of the presentation. So we also look at not only the VNR, but also the NDCs. As part of the COP in Poland last year, parties were invited to review their NDCs so that they could have a more ambitious NDCs. We know the target under the Paris Agreement is to reach way below 2.0 degrees Celsius and to make effort to reach 1.5. But the current NDCs take us to more than 3 degrees Celsius. So one of the issues that we call for is, during the review of these NDCs, stakeholders should be part of it so that we could raise ambition to be submitted. And this also goes to the national adaptation planning processes within the country and at the regional level. On the second message on supporting environment and means of implementation, we look at a number of issues. One, generation of information, sharing of information and access to information to all stakeholders. We look at the awareness and education on both the process under Paris Agreement, the Sustainable Development Goals at all levels. We talked about the finance part of it, financing the implementation of the plans that exist, and financing the major group as part of the independent monitoring of the implementation. Also, we look at the enactment of national legislation or strengthening national legislation, and also sustain political goodwill in terms of supporting such implementation. We also looked at the improvement of coordination and synergies. Now we have the SDGs, we have NDCs and other national adaptation planning within the country. So creating a synergy so that they could link to one another and complement to one another. The other one is transparency, justice, and improved civic space. We have seen a trend globally in terms of shrinking civic space and issue to attack environment and human rights defenders. So we're calling for strong measures to do away with it. And then the last one on this is making use of best available science, including the IPCC special report on 1.5 degrees Celsius. And then in terms of our third key message, is on creating or strengthening tracking and reporting mechanism. So this is where we track now the progress in terms of the SDGs, NDCs, and other national processes, and ensure that the best reporting possible to assess the outcome and the impact of what has been done. It could be annually, it could be periodically. So this was what we came with, and I thank the group members for their contribution. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. If you would have to pick one, let's say, key factor of succeeding with both, then what would it be based on the discussions that you had?
We discussed on that, and then we picked the second message on creating supporting environment and means of implementation. So if these prerequisites are there, everything can be done.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions, please? Okay, continuing to the last speaker, but not the least. Sasha, can you tell us what innovative came out of the meeting about the financing solutions?
Thank you very much. We had a really great group. We were people from Congo, Malawi, Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, Estonia, Netherlands, Canada, USA, and maybe I forgot a few people. So very diverse. We had business people, we had civil society, we had women's organizations, indigenous peoples, people who were experts on forest and on climate and on local banks and on green finance. And we first had a quick look at what is happening here at UNEA 4, in which resolutions are there financial negotiations ongoing. So we looked at the green business resolution, of course. We looked at the gender resolution, which specifically mentions the Green Climate Fund and how to make that more gender responsive, but it's on its way out, unfortunately. USA was opposing it, I think. There is a resolution on waste, and of course funding of waste cleanup is really an issue. How do you do that? Because the polluter should pay, really, but it's not happening. We looked at other issues like financial support and subsidies going to destruction of forests because of agriculture incentives, or we looked at geoengineering and who will pay in the end the bill if there is great damage done. And we looked at the plastics resolution. So we sort of looked at that, and then we said, okay, we are dealing with investors and their role, we're dealing with subsidies, we're dealing with taxes, and we're dealing with environmental and climate funds. So these were the areas we focused on. And our 3 take-out messages is, first of all, getting funding to local sustainable investments is not happening, especially not in Africa. We are not getting local funding to local communities, to women's organizations and women themselves, for youth, for small farmers, and for forest-dependent and indigenous peoples. We had Pakcha here, who was at the Climate Fund negotiations, board meeting, in Sokto, and they said, even the Green Climate Fund, if you would use all the money to bring it to the local level, it would not be enough. There is just not enough money in that fund. But at the same time, there's much more money coming from investors to go to bad investments. So we were talking about the big coal mines being opened and being funded from, big Asian investors in Eastern Europe, but also in Kenya. We heard that in Uganda they have found oil and there's a rush for oil, even in Somalia. So we see that there's a lot of money which is going to be very bad for the environment and for the climate, which is being put on the table and which is also influencing the government and their decision making. But we know that the solutions are there. We had Mary, for example, explain how already in women's organizations are sharing new technologies for energy saving and for renewable energies, but that of course for them access to finance, even if it's just $100, is a real problem. And we heard from Ethiopia that, and other countries where we see that even if there's funding available for renewables, it often stays in the cities or with the governments, and it's really difficult to get it to the local levels. But that civil society can really play a role as an intermediary and help also with re-granting and bringing it down, because often there is a problem for the larger institutions to spread the money to the local level. We heard a lot about also the private sector, that now a lot of hope is being put in blending, so that you give on the one hand subsidies, but you say you have to bring your own private partner to bring this money to a renewable investment. But that often only also reaches the cities and the middle classes, and when you really want to go into the rural areas and into the groups which currently do not have access to funding, the blending with the private sector is often not a solution. And the same goes for funding for advocacy and awareness raising. These are things which cannot be paid out of a business model. They need public support. And we heard that we need specific earmarking for funding for women's farmers, for example, who produce 70% of the food. But most of the funding available is targeted at men. We heard that we need capacity building of local women, youth and farmers on how to access the available funding, but also how to make sure that they are not being tripped and trapped into something which is going to cost them their livelihoods. We have heard a lot about bad debts and small farmers going bankrupt and having to give up their land after they had taken loans. So you really need to support the local community so that this doesn't happen. We talked about micro guarantees for farmers, for example. There was also a mention of a weather guarantee scheme. And of course, we talked about a basic income for all. So that is the main message. We need to work with everything we know works to get the funding to the local levels and to the groups who need it most. And then the second point was on how do we end these perverse subsidies, these wrong incentives, which get the funding to these coal mines and oil and plastic and pesticide producers instead of bringing it to the sustainable investments. So here we were looking at divestment campaigns. We talked about polluter pays. Of course, we have the extended polluter pays principle. We have seen quite some work on take back of plastic bottles, Coca-Cola, or electronics. But unfortunately, the majority of these systems still create a lot of waste, and the full cost and damage is never paid, despite huge billions of profits made by these companies. So that is something which could work if it would be better regulated. But of course, one area to deal with that are carbon taxes. That's a way to make the polluter pays, and that's also something we can work with. And then we talked about strong transparency policies, because who gets the money and how it's being spent and who is paying the price for pollution also depends on transparency. And we mentioned that there is at UNFCCC and also the World Health Organization conflict of interest disclosure policies. Even if you're just on a board, you have to say what your investments are. Have you invested in Monsanto or so, right? So that it's clear that when you are giving an advice, that you're giving it as an independent advisor and not as someone who has a stake in a company. So this is something which could also be better used maybe at UNEP itself, who already have a partnership policy. But we just heard from the question about the Science Business Forum, you know, that there might also be conflicts of interest there, and that it would be better or interesting to have more transparency on that. And then we had, as a third point, how do we get the good incentives, the good laws, and the capacity building? And so we had examples of local climate banks funded for international solidarity, and as well as local funds. We heard about the creation of cooperatives for renewable energy to really help create energy democracy. And this needs a very different way of organizing. And so the big companies are currently doing providing the energy services are not able to do that. But the local communities, the civil society, the cooperatives are very well organized to do this. We talked also about cooperatives for sustainable eco-agriculture, women's cooperatives, people-owned, and this will be much faster because the national grid for energy will take 50 more years maybe or more to reach the rural areas, whereas these decentralized solutions can happen tomorrow if they have the access to the funding and the technologies and the support for capacity building. And then we heard about the importance also of working with the farmers and the forest peoples, the land and forest rights for women as one of the ways to strengthen forest protection. We heard also from organic farmers that this is really knowledge intensive and it needs maybe more investments in extension services for agroecology and more investments in research for agroecology. Currently only 1% of all agro research goes to organic farming research. And we looked at scoring systems. We need to have bankers understand when they get a proposal for an agroecology project, how it is scored and that it's economically and environmentally sustainable and therefore a good investment. And often the people in the banking sector are not aware of this. And finally, we talked about the Green Climate Fund, how to get it to a local level. CSOs could be maybe helping with that, having parts of the implementation. They can already be active in the readiness, climate fund readiness projects or in the technical needs assessments. And there is already a gender strategy which also specifically tries to bring women into the activities of the Green Climate Fund. So there are openings, but it's still very difficult to move forward. And finally, we heard that there are green innovation funds, and that sometimes they don't know where to go with their funding, and that there could also be readiness support for local incentives, local groups who are working on innovation, on agroecology, etc., to be put in contact with these green innovation funds. So we wanted to discuss more after lunch, and we only had a small group who gave some input. But if anybody from my group feels we forgot something or who hasn't been able to speak before lunch would like to add something, please take the floor.
Any questions? Any remarks? Yes, please.
First of all, Jim Donovan, contributor to the Business and Industry major group. Sasha, I'd like to appreciate your, actually you covered a lot of ground, and everyone on this panel. Business and Industry, I'd like to just make a small comment that, frankly, we're all in this together. And I really only have probably three points that I'd like to be able to add is, as we figure out this new journey where we live in a world of constrained resources, we're all going to have to adapt our business models. And we need to do it, obviously, as fast as possible. We need to be able to use technology, big data, one mention was AI, for dynamic measurement, to be able to create value propositions faster with banks, with the different parties. We need to be able to represent the value proposition using data. So the technology exists, the capability to use Internet of Things is really just, it's there. We need to be able to be more capable. Regulation. From business and industry point of view, we need smart regulation. We need guidance from governments to be able to start to drive us towards these new business models where society can cooperate with business and create better products and solutions. Lastly, coordination. I think some of the points that were brought up on the floor of how do we have better transparency, better coordination, that NGOs, governments, bureaucrats, technocrats, and private sector need to be able to speak enough of each other's language so that we can move the ball forward down the field together. Business does have the funding. It represents roughly 70% of any economy around the world. We need to create smart value propositions that includes society and the different levels of society. We absolutely agree, but we need to be able to do that and communicate it in a rapid way, because we don't just have what I think the last is 12 years. We need to deliver these things in the next year, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, much more rapidly. So that's my small intervention. I just want to thank you very much for all of your inputs, and that's it. Thank you.
Can I comment on this? Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and maybe you can tell us. I think the main strategy would be to ask those businesses who already, as you say, have a lot of money and are the main investors, can they commit to divest from the unsustainable sectors? So is there a strategy there which says, I as business, and I'm a real investor in the global economy, I'm going to commit to really move out of fossil fuels, pesticides, plastics, because we know this is one of the challenges we have to deal with in 12 years. And if my company continues to invest in it, even if it's through its pension funds, you're still contributing to the unsustainable economy. So is this something you can bring here to UNEA as a commitment?
I said I was just a representative. I appreciate the question, and it's not just business that we're talking about change, we're talking about a societal change. And in any change of this scale, we need to figure out ways to put incentives for smart money flows and put disincentives for short-term investment isms. And for that, we need to all together, not just business and industry, government, civil society, NGOs, come up with ways that we can pressure heading towards that goal. I'm a believer. I'm here. I'm with you. But I also, the reality of creating value propositions that make sense for boards, for shareholders, they're absolutely clued in people, but they're also trying to make payroll. And a lot of the supply chain, let's say, take it down from the large corporations down into the rest of the world, are really trying to drive and just make payroll. So how do we affect change for all the companies in ways that make sense? So it's a bigger picture than just, I think it's all part of society.
Yeah, no, and I agree on that. I think the problem is, of course, that you have to create value for your shareholders. And if it's easier to have a great profit on a negative investment in whatever coal mine or whatever plastic factory, then it's very difficult to convince your shareholders to invest in the eco farms and the renewable energy cooperatives. But in the end, the investments which seem so attractive in the mines and in the plastics will come with a great later cost, because there will be more and more regulations for the polluters to clean up. So I think that is still an area we really need to work with shareholders and investors to understand that what now seems as a quick buck is really going to bring them maybe into prison for the unsustainability and the enormous damage it's doing to humanity and the planet.
If I could just comment.
Yes, please.
Thank you. You're giving two very distinct, to the far right and left of the discussion. The reality is, as society moves, you're absolutely right. Those are stranded assets. And frankly, it is maybe even not even coal. There's many stranded assets that national utilities are facing today because we're now moving to a microgrid, and national grids are looking at unsustainable finance models. So it's not even necessarily dirty industry, but it's also, you know, the ball is moving. The business models are changing. So board of directors, responsible shareholders are looking at stranded assets and making better decisions for the future. So I do agree, but it's always how you couch the discussion. And if you couch it the way that you did, it doesn't leave a lot open for how do we move society all together. Remember when I first started my intervention was, we're all in this together, and how can we do that?
Yes, and I think it would be great if we could have much more investments in these local cooperatives and eco-agriculture. So it's something we should continue to discuss, but I understand from the chair that she wants to move on.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
I can see that there's a topic for you to discuss during the party, maybe later on. Okay, any other questions? If not, then, or to other participants or to other facilitators. Any questions to others? Yes, yes, please.
Madam Chair, when you were leaving, you made mention of something on forests. We didn't much cover it. I don't know whether it was a foregone conclusion that it's over, or people are still giving some idea on forests.
Yes, I think it was question. Was the question to Sasha? Yes.
Yes, we did have a discussion on also specifically forest, and that on the one hand, you know, there is a lack of access to funding for local and forest-dependent communities to protect their forests, to improve their livelihoods, to do, you know, projects which are community-based forest conservation, where they're not excluded from their forests. We also talked about the incentives for agriculture, intensive agriculture, which leads to deforestation. This is a topic, I think, which is really very important, and we have some experts here who are specifically looking at REDD+ and what we have learned from it as a finance mechanism. So I think this is something we can maybe also take on in the further discussions, but we certainly should mention it. I know it's already mentioned in the drafts which have been circulated of the NGO major group and the women's major group. So, but you're right, it is a very important topic. Thank you.
Where is it for,
So, final question. No one wants to end. Okay, then thank you for the facilitators, and thank you for all to participate. We're going to continue here and have a great rest of the day. Thanks.
I did first. She didn't see you. It's okay.
So we continue our agenda, and we'd like to invite Pedro. Pedro will update us on the status of the common statement of all major groups. Of course, for the last session, we would like also, as I mentioned, to have one paragraph from each breakout session to Pedro also, so we can include in this common statement. Okay, Pedro.
Hello, dears. Good afternoon. I will be opening here the Google Drive to be able to explain the methodology we have used to come for the common statement. Just a second, please. So, like around 1 month ago, when we started receiving the compilation of the statements from each region, we started coming with the idea of having a common statement. This is an innovative statement because from the previous UNEAS, we were able to have a statement coming from the combinations of the regions, but that not include each major group. And for this time, I can show you the reference docs that we got. It's basically from the beginning the regional declarations, and then we were adding the major groups declarations. And then the methodology we have been following was to create this Google Sheet with all the statements that we got, including with the marine litters expert group. We have organized this by the effort of each facilitator from regions and from the major groups facilitators. So I can show you very quickly, just passing through it, just so you have an idea. And we divided and organized all the statements by thematics. So here on the top you find the thematics that we were working on, based on the declarations that were made. And many of the major groups, until the last week, do not have a position paper already done. This is a moving process that every day we'll have a new documents, new positions, and the positions is changing every day. But we choose to find some categories that was in most of the statements, and they are sustainable consumption and production, people's innovative solutions, resource efficiency and waste management, climate change and disasters, ecosystems and biodiversity, environmental governance, food security, biodiversity again. So here we found, we created a Google group, a Google Doc for each thematic, and I can show you anyone, like food security, for example. Then by this Google Sheet, during all this week, we were looking for experts from each thematic to be helping compiling the different statements and perspectives from regions and major groups. So we come for different documents by thematics, and our methodology for studying each thematic was to create a preamble, background, explaining the problem, and then coming with the recommendations. So key asks here in food security. But let me show you another one. And this was a collaborative process that, from my understanding, all the regional statements and the major group statements were made on a consultative process based on inclusivity. So when we come with these regional statements and major group statements, we presume that was made on an inclusive process of by doing each one document. So when compiling everything, we considered that all the regions and all the major groups had the opportunity to find their spaces and to spread their voices. But let me show you another one. Since the internet stopped. Here's the climate change one. We have environmental governance. So now the main task is, after this compilation of all the statements and by being organized by each thematic group, the idea is to come with all these
messages together to come with the common statement. Do anyone have any question about the methodology on how the process was done? No questions? So, now I would like to invite Kuala and Janice to explain the following of the process. Anyone have any question about the methodology work done until now on compiling the documents, creating the thematic groups? Does anyone wants to share any thoughts or perspective?
You've already explained the process.
Good afternoon, everybody. Janice, please join us, Lida. So, for those of you who have been with us in the Google Mail or in the WhatsApp group, and those who have been with us in the previous days, Pedro have asked everybody to enter the regional statements and the stakeholder statements, and we did. And from that, we got a compilation of all the statements put together in one place. So that table that you see in front of you is everything that all the regions, all the stakeholders have prepared, have thought of, and have made as their statement. The step after that was, who's going to look at all of this and look, for instance, to food security, read the food security from West Asia, from Latin America, from everywhere, from the NGO stakeholder, from the woman, and then come out with one paragraph that capture all the important things in all these different statements. And those of you who have been with us in the previous days know that Pedro have asked repeatedly for experts to step in and do that, simply because he is not the expert in each field. In the previous days, I've asked few people like Lida and Jan, Bert, and other people to take one theme or two themes and make the summary. So what you see in front of you, for instance, is the food security. That summary is taken from each region, from each stakeholder. And then we thought even further that the best thing to do is to come out with the problem. What is the problem? Or what are the main issues in food security? And bring it to the level where we can have bulleted points of what do we want. As CSOs, what are our demands regarding food security? So first of all, I'd like to thank Pedro for the amazing work that he did. And second, for the committee, for the experts who took the themes one by one and put in their time, their effort, their expertise to come out with this summary. I'll hand the talk to Leida and Jan to elaborate on how they came out with that.
Thank you, and I only can reiterate the thanks to Pedro to do this tremendous job, because it was really a lot of text that he put together from all the regions, from all the major groups. So it was also for us a kind of a challenge to bring this into a summary. But as always, there was a lot of overlap. Let's say there was a lot of agreement on the main priorities. I did one on SEP and on environmental governance. I'm more an expert in SEP than in environmental governance, but I looked at the text and I did my best to make the summary out of it. But for the SEP, we, in this case, took out I think the main problem, what we see as the main problem. So you can read it here. I don't know if you can read it from the screen. Is it big enough for you to read it? Anyhow, we're not. I don't think we are going to discuss it now. So it's just that you can see it. And then I took out the recommendations from the several groups. When there was overlap, it was okay. And when there were specific things, I just saw if it was relevant enough to put it as a priority, because this is really about priorities. The member states are going to read all the let's say they I don't know if they are going to read it, but at least they are able to read all our positions from the major groups and from the regional meetings as well. So what I did was having all these bullet points that I thought were the most mentioned in all the text. The same I did for the environmental governance. Although I think from my own perspective that the SCP statement is more or less complete. I think most of the things are in. I think on the environmental governance, maybe we should have a second look, at least someone with a more environmental governance expertise to see if everything is in. Because I think also in what I saw from the regional statements and from the major groups, that was not a point that was most elaborated on. Thank you.
Yes, just to reiterate that it was actually quite a large job to take together all the regional statements and all the major group statements, and it took a lot of kind of cross-comparing, but we had to make a balance and see which themes were repeated and which came out more strongly, because we could only have a short brief. And so we did that. We kind of balanced what different regions, what different major groups have said, and we brought out the things that came through, most strongly. And the other thing I wanted to say is that we've put the background to the issue really to help guide people on, what people thought were the most important aspects of the issue. And I did the food security one. And then we did recommendations, or kind of like key asks, the kind of higher level things that we should be asking for. And we were only able to put a few bullets because the opportunity will be very limited. And so, I guess when some people look at it, you may think, oh, you haven't included my particular issue. But we were very much guided by the documents that we were working from. And so we just had to take the kind of strongest, the major points, and use those. And so the way we hope we all use it is to use the background just, as background to the issue, particularly for people, who may not be as familiar with the issue, and then the asks to form the basis of what we ask for, as a room. And so we hope that when people make interventions, that they will look at these briefings and make their suggestions around and using these briefings wherever you can. Thank you.
So all of you on WhatsApp, whomever I have their numbers, you've received that link where you have a folder containing all these documents. I've sent it to the NGO earlier, and I sent it to the major groups like an hour ago. So have a look at it and read it. The question I want to say now is, where do we go from here? You have it, as John said, this is a very good, important background information, because this is what you have written in your region, what you have written in your major groups. So this is the great effort that each one of you have put for us to come there. How do we take this into the statements or the interventions that are going to be made in the coming week? This is the question that I'd like to take 10 minutes to hear from you. And the second thing, I've sent you a table as we discussed yesterday in the NGO group, but I want to say it to everybody. We have a table where for each one of you who wants to make an intervention in any of the discussions to come, you need to write the date, the topic, and then the statements or the bullet points that you're going to discuss. The reason for that is that we will be given only very limited slots of time to talk for all the major groups. So let's say in one day we have 3 only. So only 3 can talk. The others cannot. So we need to know who wants to talk, what do they want to say, so that we, the co-chairs and the facilitators of the groups, have seen it, have agreed to it, and then we go to the chair that day of the discussion and say that A will speak, B will speak. It's not like you just will sit there and raise the flag and talk. We have to have this ahead of time, and it could come to situations where we ask 2 groups to discuss it among each other and agree on one thing, because there is only 1 time slot allocated at that day. So my question again, that would like to take 10 minutes to discuss how to go from the summaries of the thematic that you have written in your regional statements and stakeholder statements that the drafting committee have prepared for you, and we have sent it to you through the WhatsApp group. How do we go from there to the statements that you're going to write on that table that I'm going to resend again today, because apparently it has an issue. Pedro will fix it and we'll send it again to everybody. So how do we go from these reference, from this background information, into the statements and the interventions that you will give in the coming days in UNEA? So I would like to hear your thoughts. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Well,
sorry.
Sorry. Oh, sure. Please go ahead.
All right. Just a quick question. I'm from the Kenya Platform for Climate Governance, and I know there could be a number of latecomers into this process. We have established ourselves to try to engage in a more serious manner the issues of climate change and mitigation globally, and representing Kenya in particular. I know you've done a lot of work. Thank you very much. I think this is pretty good work, although also very intensive. And I know it might be a bit, could I say, quote unquote, interfering right now to even ask if there's an opportunity to make any contribution whatsoever in the final document between now and Monday. Is that opportunity available? And if so, how can we plug into the process? Sorry, thanks.
Can I answer his question, please? Thank you for your question. Actually, we have a thematic team, as our colleague Khawla said. We have like one of the drafting committee is responsible for climate change, and one of them is responsible for sustainable consumption and production. So if you have a point, for example, related to climate change, you may refer to the committee, then we can put it in the drafting, because we're going to have a meeting by 5:30 by today. So we come out with the final statements that is going to be present during the first day of the UNIA. So anyone are really welcome to have, if you have any point, to share it with anyone of the drafting committee. So at least your point is going to be in if it is really valid and it's really relevant to the point. Thank you.
Just let me clarify something. At 5:30, we will meet the drafting team, but we will not come with the final statement today. We will come from the final draft. We hope to have a final draft today, and we'll send for consultations for every region and every major group during the weekend. So at the Monday, we ensure that we arrive here with a final document based on everyone will have time to contribute. If you can give inputs now until 5:30, it's perfect, then we will consider it for the text. But if not, we will be receiving this document to be able to make a review during the weekend.
I just want to alarm everybody. If you received the document that he's talking about, they're almost final. When we're saying that we'll do just some of the documents will need a little review from us. They are almost final. Huge work have been put there. So when Pedro said consultation, please, if there is something like really important, like a red flag that you want to raise. Otherwise, please do not feel like you just want to rephrase something or add something. We just will never finish if we do that. The main thing that I would like you to do, please, everybody, read the documents. The folder that has been sent to you, this is a summary, and this is it includes as well the exact words that you have written. Maybe you did not contribute in it, but it's your region, it's your stakeholders. Everyone have been given opportunity to contribute in that. So what you find there is the work that has been taking place for the last months in your regions, in your stakeholders. What is most important, what I would love you to do is to read it. Please read it. Do not come to UNIA and you did not read even the position paper of the NGO stakeholder if you're an NGO. Do not come and you did not read the regional statement that represents your region. You should read it. You should know what's in it. And then to make life even easier for you, we made summaries. So please read the summary. Those people have spent sleepless nights to just prepare those summaries. And trust me, it's not easy. Just try going through regional statements and trying to make one paragraph of all of them, and then add to that stakeholders. So if you want to know what is the best thing to do, is please read them. And you will learn a lot by just reading them. And maybe all that you have in mind and you think it's so important to include, maybe it's included already there. But just because you did not read it, you think it has not been included. So I'll say it once more. This weekend is an amazing opportunity for everybody to read these documents. So please go ahead and read them. Thank you. Any other question? Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Three quick comments. First, I would like to commend the drafting committee of what seems to be very impressive and, as you were rightly recalling, very demanding work. And I think it's quite very constructive. And we are, I think I can speak in the name of everyone, but personally, I'm very grateful for all the work that was done. The second point would be, well, on a personal level, unfortunately, I have not received any email or any document, but I'm sure I'm the only one in this room who didn't write his name or his email where he was supposed to have written it.
And your WhatsApp number?
With the NGO. NGO group.
It's in the NGO? You are
The Mohammed VI Foundation for Environmental Protection is an NGO.
right.
Yeah.
So anyone who's not receiving, okay, I'll just take this opportunity,
Yes.
I'll let you continue.
Thank you.
Anyone who's not receiving messages from us on the WhatsApp group, the major group or NGO group,
Yeah.
please come to me
Yeah.
and give me your number. Make sure it is in my mobile.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Thank you very much. And my very final point, I would like some clarification in terms of process. I understand that the inputs that you received were from the regional papers and they were submitted, and that's what you used in that regard, and I think this is a very correct way forward. But what confuses me a bit is that I'm not sure I understand anymore the purpose of the exercise we did earlier, where we separated ourselves in breakthrough, and we had the instruction to come up with some elements among ourselves to agree that should be featured in the statement. So if I understand correctly, those instructions may have been misunderstood, at least by myself, because those comments that were summarized just before you spoke in the previous panel are not to serve as an input to the common statement. If I understood you correctly, the common statement will only have as an input the various papers that were submitted by the regions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for raising this question. We were waiting for it. So Tariq, would like to take it? Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for your question, which is a very good point. For this statement, actually, we have been collected from the regional consultation meeting, which is actually have been happening before this UNIA. So each region have to come out with the consultations with the accredited organizations that UNEP is invited them, and they come up with this statement. So we have taken from each region. So basically, any points that's why we are here. It's if you have a valid point, as she said, our friend Khawla, with the red flag, so we can add it to that statement, for example, which is really needed.
Let me just clarify.
I understood your question. I'm just going to give you, just going to build up on what Tariq said. That was my question, actually. When I opened the stage for 10 minutes, that was my question, is are we going as a committee to receive the output from the groups, from what happened today, and then include it in the common statement if it's not included? I need clarification from you, actually, maybe Mohammed. As far as we're concerned, the common statement reflects the regional statements and the stakeholder statements that we have received. But we understand that from the discussion that happened today and maybe yesterday, you have outputs from the discussion. So how to incorporate these together, I think we'll sit together as co-chairs and look at this with the committee as well. Is that okay? Okay. Mohammed, would you like to clarify?
Yeah, just a quick clarification. Of course, the common statement should be by all major groups and all regions, but since all of us participated in the breakout session, it has been also a tradition that each breakout session, because we are discussing a thematic theme of UNIA 4, so they are kindly requested to submit only one paragraph, 3 or 4 lines maximum, and with this one paragraph, it might be redundant or it might have another good idea. So also we need to take a look on that. But this is requested from each facilitator of the thematic 5 clusters which we had in the breakout session. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the other important thing is that the drafts we did are very issue-focused, and we can use anything that came from the working groups and incorporate anything that's missing in that. But more importantly, there are also some very high-level structure and systemic issues raised, which we will need to make some kind of like chapeau, some kind of higher-level paragraph before we go into our different issue parts. Thanks. Yeah, like a preamble or a structural system.
Yeah, sorry to come back again, but just I want to highlight. So now we were, as it has been in previous units, so now you are working on the common statement. Common statement, if we all agree, it is not mandatory that all major groups agree. Maybe one major group or a couple of major groups are not happy, they have their own interests, they have their own language. But if we all agree, then we deliver this in the plenary of Monday. But it could be that one major group or a number of major groups don't endorse it, so it's fine. Endorse it by couple, by 5, by 6. But then you do your work, and you bring it to us, and then we decide. The heads of the major groups will decide. Thank you.
Please. We kept you wait for a long time, sorry.
Thank you very much. We'd like to acknowledge the huge amount of work that's gone into these wonderful documents, and thank you to all those who worked so hard. Dr. Ayad reminded us that there is 53 organizations here at UNIP from the faith communities, and I think that's the first time there's been such a strong block from the faith community. So our request would be, if it's possible, that we could prepare a very short addendum, very short, just a few lines that could be attached to the document, just as a short addendum on behalf of the faith communities.
Okay, I'll come back to you in a second, okay.
Yeah, just some comments on what you said, Mohamed. I think on the former UNEAS, what we did, because it's indeed very difficult to have an endorsement of all the 9 major groups, that will take us another week for endorsement. So what we did, and indeed it's a kind of semantic thing, but we said, well, this is the outcome of the forum, without having it being endorsed by the major group or whatever, but just in kind of, well, this is the outcome of what we talked here. It doesn't matter who is in. And then we are also, let's say, able to, instead of having an addendum, you can just, let's say, put your paragraph in as it was indeed, if it was indeed discussed during this forum. But I think that's different because we need to have something in a written form as outcome of this meeting, and that is not the position of the 9 major groups. I mean, that's the difference, let's say, and it makes us a lot easier to say, okay, well, this is just the outcome, so you don't need to endorse everything that's in. We just discussed it. And that makes it our life easier to have something in common for Monday to present. But anyhow, we have just 1 minute or maybe 2 minutes to present it on Monday, so it will be very general anyhow.
Right. So first of all, I'd like to welcome the amazing presence of the faith groups. We're very happy. We feel blessed that all of you are here. And one of you have sent a message today to the group saying that he's praying for all of us. And for me, it meant the world that we have those amazing people praying for all of us, for the success, for everything good. Yes, we will take the paragraph that you have written. Please give it to us. And thank you for writing it. Thank you. Just to conclude, does anyone have another question? No. So just to conclude, a reminder, we have sent all of you, except those who are not on the WhatsApp group, who will approach me and give me their numbers. And forgive us for sending and resending documents, just because many people keep joining. So hopefully by midnight tonight, everyone will be in, and we will send all the documents once more. We will send a folder that has all the regional statements, all the stakeholder statements, and a summary, thematic-wise. Read it and enjoy it, and then be ready to share everything from there. The second thing is the committee will continue working, receiving your comments, receiving the output of the groups, and coming out with the statements that will go into the plenary, at least. For those of you who want to make a comment or a statement in the different clusters, in the plenary itself, we will send the table through that we explained before. Can you show it, Pedro? It has a very simple structure. The one that to include the comments, that has the date and the
speakers, the Excel speakers,
the interventions. Okay. And once more, I'd like to thank Pedro for his amazing work. I don't know how would I have achieved that if Pedro was not there, and the amazing group that have been drafting, not just drafting, but sharing their expertise with us. Okay, so this is the table. It will be a little bit different, so date will come higher up, and then you will say what is the topic you want to talk about that's in your interest and your expertise, in which room, and that date. Who is the speaker? So if you are the indigenous people, who is the person who will speak in in behalf of indigenous people, and we will tell you what is the number of slots of that day. It will be announced at that time. And then what are the main bullet points? So you will have to fill in this form so that the facilitators of each group will see them, the co-chairs of the major groups committee will see them, and the drafting committee is here to help in redrafting, to help maybe in combining two things so that nothing will get lost in any day. Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted to have one clarification. So this sheet is for the major groups who will be delivering the statement in the plenary, right?
Or interventions in the other clusters.
So for me, logistically, so okay, the first step is that if we fill this up in, then whoever is in charge of the sheet will inform the secretariat, because the names have to go earlier for us to have the slots. Yeah, sometimes we miss it.
Yeah, that's the job of the co-chairs. Yeah. So the co-chairs have to have this. That's why we're having this.
Yeah. The second is that we need to have a deadline for that, because and sometimes we really don't know, because sometimes you make the statements at the last minute knowing what somebody said, at the same time. The other one is that to put in some main bullet points. I think I would just suggest that if this is a shared folder, that that people would just put in their statements after they are read, because sometimes the last minute edits are being done, and then they could be just either emailed to everybody, because I don't understand. So you're saying that if I put it in bullet points, then somebody will edit it?
No, we're saying, okay, let me clarify the things you said. We're saying that you will say that you want to speak at that day. It does not mean that you're going to speak, because there might be 10 people who want to speak on that day. So if we have an idea, then we know, and we can tell everybody we have only 3 slots for speakers. Then we'll ask you to talk to Pedro, to talk to Rabika, and agree among yourself who's going to speak. And maybe the one who will speak will include all the points, because that's all what we have. The reason for asking you to write the bullet points is if this topic is very important for you and you're speaking, let's say, in room 4, and you will have the opportunity to take the microphone and say your statement, but we can go to that room and approach the state, the government representative that we know, and discuss these bullet points, because I might know nothing about the topic, but because you wrote these bullet points, you made life easier for me. I can help you, I can support you. You will give that statement, or maybe you will not have a chance to give that statement, but all of us know that this is an important position that need to be delivered. So we try to support you as much as we can through the government representatives, through other means that we might have. We might speak with people in the corridor, not necessarily in that room, to support you. So the reason for this is for us to know beforehand who wants to speak. And it does not mean that all those people who want to speak will actually speak. It depends on the time slots that are allocated at that day. It's not open. Everyone should be aware of that. So if we say, for instance, 3 time slots, it doesn't mean for NGOs are 3 and for indigenous people are 3. That's 3 for all of us, which is a great challenge. That's why we wanted this ahead of time, so no one gets surprised at that day. We know, and we can coordinate things between us, so no important points get lost. Is that clear?
No, I just need a little bit of clarification, sorry. My understanding was that I mean, my experience with CBD or other negotiations, right? And talking to Alex also, if he's here, that possibly that all the major groups would get an opportunity if time permits. Right? And then, because if you have 9 major groups and you tell us there are only 3 slots, then who decides who those three speakers are going to be? Like, at least in the Singapore, the environment meeting, what happened was that when there is a topic in discussion, you could take a paper from the secretariat and give your name, and it would come in line of who said it, and then you take the floor off, till the time permits, right? Like, like how it's done in, I don't know, other negotiations. So it's not preempted so many days before, because then it's the floor is sometimes given, and sometimes you say only three statements, and sometimes there's more, and then the parties say, well, you know, anybody else, and you're like, I'm struggling. So just for my clarification, for the process.
Lida.
I can just answer your question for the experience I have in the former UNEAS. But every morning we have that major group briefing where the secretariat comes, Alex, Alexander, or Leticia, and they tell us how many speaking slots we will have. And that's indeed not often a lot, because all the countries want to speak. So, and then indeed we know that, let's say it's 3 speaking slots, so then indeed in the major group, which is all major groups, we have a discussion, or we have to decide who is going to speak on that day. Often when we have similar points, we say, okay, well, we want to raise those points, and then we say, okay, the 3 major groups come together, let's say women, NGOs, and indigenous people, and then someone speaks on behalf of the 3 major groups, because we endorse those points. But let's say it's indeed like this, that every morning we hear how many speaking slots we get as major groups for that day. I also have to admit that sometimes, if countries are, let's say if there is more time, then sometimes the chair says, well, is there anyone else who wants to speak? And then indeed we have a kind of a spontaneous time slot, but normally, let's say the process is that we will hear every morning how many speaking slots we will have. And then it's depending on the chairs, if it's in between the nations, I mean the member states, or it's just when all the member states are done, and then it's, okay, we still have some time left for the major groups. And that's how it is, and that's why we need to be so coordinated on this. And it's different in the UNEA than in the CPR, which is a little bit more informal. I don't say it is informal, but it's more informal. And then you have, that's the plenary, and then you have the different working groups, and that's also depending a lot on the co-chairs, if we are allowed to speak or not. There sometimes it's indeed a little bit more spontaneous, because then you can react on a point, but the plenary is quite strict, I would say.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In fact, the method that Leda has articulated, the method that we have been following, where we meet every morning and we are told that there are so many slots for speaking, is more articulate, and we avoid mistakes. We don't clash with the chairs of the sessions, and we don't wait in vain, as long as we've been told. And then we plan properly. So those early morning meetings are very, very important. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for pointing this. So when UNEA starts, we will have to have the early morning meetings. Do not miss them, especially if you want to speak on that day. If you don't want to speak, come as well. But if you want to speak on that day, definitely don't miss the morning meeting. The reason why we made this table is to try to organize ourselves as much as we can. On the day, I'm sure things will happen, but at least we are organized as much as possible and ready for surprises. In the morning, we might say something have changed. According to that, we will change. But if you have written 10 interventions on the tables, then we know that if we have 10 chances, then great, everyone will speak. But if we have only 3, then we have decided ahead of time what are the 3 interventions that we will make. And it's a practiced way that we've done it in everywhere and every time among CSOs, that we agree among ourselves. I have something to say and Leda has something to say, but we have only one time slot. We will agree among each other who will speak, and the one who will speak will take in consideration the other points. At the end of the day, we are major groups. We are civil society organizations. So we will practice flexibility, but we want organizations so things don't get off hand at that time. Any other question? Are you okay? So shall we go ahead in the way that we explained? Is everyone happy?
Janice has a quick question.
Janice, yeah.
So I don't know whether I'm meant to ask a question from the panel, but I've got one. So I was wondering, logistically, if anyone has got any comments, burning issues on the thematic position paper, should they put that around everybody? Or, for example, I did the food security paper along with Wally from the Farmers Major Group. And so if we had any comments, we'd want to look at that together and think about it. So should we send the email addresses of the people responsible for each section so people can approach them directly? Or should people send their comments around to the group as a whole?
Yeah. No, I would say that we'll give them the email of the committee and let them send anything with a CC to all of us. So if Wally, but Wally knows that this is his. But Wally, if he was not there, then we have an opportunity to read it and maybe respond and consult with him. It's better to have the email coming to all of us.
So you'll put it on the group?
Yeah, so we'll put the emails of the committee, of everybody here. When you send your comments, send it to all of us, please. Thank you for asking this. That was very important. Does anyone have any other question? All right.
Let's go to the party.
Oh yeah, there is a party waiting. So I would like to thank Pedro and the committee for the amazing work, and thank you for the great input from your side. And Leila is saying, let's go to party. Thank you very much. أحمد ممكن لو سمحت صورة نعم صورة بس تصورنا تقدر الحين قبل ما ننزل شكرا
Yes, we'd like to have the final closing session.
We will have just one picture and give you the floor.
Okay, we have too many pictures here. Okay, so this is the final session of our Global Major Group and Stakeholder Forum. We will not take too much of your time. We will also give you some free time before the party. But we would like to tell you some closing remarks and also some news announcement. We will start by our colleague Mitika from Bakja, the organization for this forum. So please, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Chair, my friend Mohammed, the Major Group Chair, co-chairs, representatives from various constituencies and regions from across the world, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I take this opportunity to wish all women and men of goodwill here a happy and blessed Women's Day. Viva women! Viva women! No, my friend, that's how it should be. Viva women! Thank you very much. All what starts well ends well. As I mentioned during the opening, the interactions of the past 2 days, which I can term as deeply engaging and rigorous exercise, comes to a close. This effectively concludes the process which kicked off last year when we joined hands with the UN Environment Civil Society Unit and the Global Major Groups Facilitating Committee to plan for the 18th forum. This forum uniquely recorded an unprecedented number of participants from all walks of life and from across the globe. We had a diversity of participants ranging from women, youth, indigenous peoples, business, research, trade unions, and people from a variety of professions. Without also forgetting, I think I heard a lot of voices from the faith community. It is in this diversity that we find our strength as non-state actors who are determined to catalyze a paradigm shift in the way we should manage our finite resources so as to live with harmony with nature. Our ideas are as diverse as we are, yet they find a common point of convergence in our common resolution as a forum. We have extensively shared between ourselves and even from high-level panelists on grassroots innovations, solutions to the menace facing humanity, that is environmental degradation. Ladies and gentlemen, as PAGJA, we are inspired by your high turnout and valuable contributions throughout the sessions. We had a very good opportunity to interrogate the declarations of UNEA and the extent of their implementation. This is an important process because it is the only avenue we have to hold policymakers accountable of their promises and declarations. We have been able to listen to provocatively innovative solutions at the community level, and this making us confident that solutions to our problems will only come from us and our communities. As an organization with the mandate of policy advocacy, my take home from this forum is that we need to strengthen nexus within our processes, linking UNFCCC processes with UNSCCD, for instance, UNCBD, Agenda 2030, and other processes. Through this, we believe we will be able to build a strong movement to surmount obvious resistance from adversaries who have remained impediments for the future, which we want. It is through such a movement of environmental justice that we will demolish all the obstacles erected against us and the obstacles which have shrunk our space in some UN processes and governments. As I conclude, I reiterate that it is not enough to make recommendations year in, year out, and annually without tracking whether such recommendations are acted upon. Equally, it doesn't make any sense to make policy decisions at UNEA year in, year out without any implementation. It is the high time we questioned our policymakers whether they have taken stock of the decisions they have made since UNEA 1, UNEA 2, UNEA 3, and now we are at UNEA 4, and how they have contributed to the overall objective of UNEA. Otherwise, it will be just a game of musical chairs. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, let me extend my sincere gratitude to co-organizers of this forum, and particularly the UN Environment Civil Society Unit and the Major Groups Steering Committee for the trust they are condemned us to lead in organizing this 18th forum. We hope we did not disappoint any one of you, and that in case there is anything which did not go the right way, let's take that as a lesson for improvement. We will remain ready to contribute in any way possible, wherever called upon, for the effective engagement of the major groups, as this is the only way we can contribute to the global effort to bequeath habitable earth to the future generations whom we owe the resources in trust. It is our hope that our recommendations will find space to enrich the decisions of UNIAFO. I thank you all.
Thanks a lot, Mutika Mwanda, Executive Director of BAGJA. Well, allow me to mention just a couple of minutes. I will not take much time, but I was just about to start my talk, and I received this SMS message from our friend Peter Denton. If you remember him, I'm sure some of you remember him. But it's a very nice message, so that some people are following us alive. He is following us alive from the United States, and he is sending his greetings. And he is mentioning that he is very happy to see a productive meeting. I've been following it, the live feed, and I see a better progress and a better process. Congratulations. It makes me very happy to have such messages like this. I feel that we have succeeded to achieve our aims. So we were aiming mainly for two things, that we raise understanding of what will happen in UNIA during UNIA, and what are the themes and what are the resolutions. And I hope we managed to achieve that through the different breakout session and also the interactive discussion panels yesterday. And also, it was one of the aims that to raise awareness about the whole process for the newcomers, and I hope that we managed to achieve that. And in this regard, I am very happy to thank the UNIP Civil Society unit for all the support they have given us, Alexander, Letitia, and all the team. Thank you very much, and allow me to give them a round of applause. They have done a great job and facilitated our work. Thanks a lot. And also allow me to thank our colleagues from BAGJA, Mutika Mwanda, and all the team. They have done a great work in the last few months organizing the teleconferences, speakers, and so on. It's been a very heavy work, and thank you. It has been a very successful. Thank you, BAGJA. And I would like to thank you all also for your active participation. I hope you have enjoyed the sessions and you have learned something. And if you allow me, I would like also to remind you that as it was mentioned in the previous session, that we will start our UNIA. Tomorrow we have the Science Policy Business Forum on Saturday and Sunday. And we are very happy that we finally managed to have one of our major groups to be speaking in one of the sessions. So Isis Alvar here have been slotted in the food system session. So you are welcome to come attend some session and follow her presentation on food security tomorrow. We are not meeting tomorrow. It's open, so you can come and follow the Science Policy Business Forum, but we are meeting, as it was mentioned, from Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning, which is very important meeting to coordinate our participation during the day, including statement and access to different sessions and so on. So please be sure to be there. And also during this week, we will have our green events our side events at the Green Tent. I'm sure many of you have planned some events. It looks like very interesting events. It will be almost the full day. It has been updated a little bit, so watch the latest version because we have some additions, important dialogues and meetings with the President of UNIA, Chief Scientist. The head of ECOSOC is coming especially for us, and also special envoy for climate change. So it has a lot of updates, a lot of interesting meetings. And also I'd like to remind you that those who are interested to become a trainer, to register for the training on 14. We have been circulating the registration form. A number of you already done, but if you haven't done so and you wish to join the training, please do so. Last thing I would like, before I would close, as my friend mentioned, I will open the floor, but I would like to open the floor and I would like to listen from you maybe what you have seen very important, very successful, very informative, and what things you have seen not working very well also, please tell us. So I will open the floor for this for 3 or 4 interactions. So please tell us which sessions, what you have liked most, what you benefit, what you didn't benefit, what you didn't like. So please, Ahmed.
First, I'd like to thank you and thank Musika. I'd like to say something as an NGO attend UNEA 3 from 2 years ago. I'd like to say when I'm here with you, thanks for Bagja. Bagja gave me a chance to have a capacity building. As a member with them, I attended many meetings and learned a lot from Mitika, Augustine, and our team. They give us a chance to talk. So when yesterday we were talking about our work, we think we're at our home, not just we are in a big meeting and we are worried to talk. That's first. And second, I'd like to thank my colleagues for African group. We worked during the AMSIN for preparing the papers that Fazal talked about it. So finally, I thank all of you, and it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Ahmed. Thanks, Ahmed. Any other interaction, please?
Thank you so much, Mr. Cheboy, Stephen, from here in Kenya, Kenya Platform for Climate Governance, a national platform supported by PACCHA, and more so, I'm the chair, National Council of NGOs. First of all, allow me to appreciate that the 2 days has been extremely successful because of the commitment of the members from various major groups, and also allow me to take this opportunity. I know we didn't have time to really speak, to welcome our colleagues from around the globe to this particular beautiful country, Kenya, and also appreciate that we are really engaging. I just want to support what colleague Mitika said in terms of implementation. We have a duty as NGO major groups and also other stakeholders to ensure whatever is passed at UNEA, whether UNEA 1, 2, or whichever, are followed up. And again, it gives a very good opportunity, if you also heard the opening remarks in the morning, that there are so many good case studies from around the globe and also specific countries. As major groups, we need to share those special cases or good cases from around the various countries so that each one of us can learn from one another. And probably in future, we should be having enough time, call it maybe 2-3 days or so, so that we also have time specifically for ourselves, not necessarily just like what should be presented during, for example, the upcoming UNEA by states. So that's my concern, but also want to sincerely appreciate everybody and say that as far as the leadership of major groups are concerned, you need to really take lead. It's also good to have like proper participation from the various members, but also because some are new, so when it comes to like presenting the right position as may be required, really take lead. And we contributed well during the NGO major group yesterday that we need to entrust the presentations to the already experts in the process, so that when you speak on our behalf, maybe during the plenary or other discussions, you are likely not to go wrong. Thank you so much, and probably we'll keep on engaging even after UNEA. May God bless you.
Thank you, thank you. But I would like to hear also some things which you say negative or you didn't like. So let me know. It will help us to improve and the organization in the future. If everything is fine, I'll be very happy, but okay, yes, please.
Sorry, well, it's not something negative exactly. It's just a suggestion that because these 2 days there are going to happen some things. I mean, this forum, the business forum or other forums that you mentioned, we're also having a meeting, a parallel meeting on biodiversity and human rights. So we would hope that through the communication tools we have, which is either a mailing list or WhatsApp, or even in the morning meeting, if we can have some space that we can be aware about it, because we need to be aware of other stakeholders stakeholders participating and other spaces being part of this process. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, thank you for Bruno. One of the important things for the Green Tents that we discuss what happened, because you can't be in all meetings, so people will go to different sessions. A quick feedback about different sessions that happened in the last day is presented by different members. But for tomorrow and Sunday, it's not a heavy schedule, only the Science Business Policy Forum. So only you are all welcome. I think you are all can join this. In the back, please. And then you.
I'm just finding out how you've done this before, but you're very much hungry to get any other criticism or comments that you think can help you improve in the future. Is it possible, and I don't know how you've done this before, whether you've done it before, if you can have some evaluation sheets that you can pass around and we can make various comments to questions or some questionnaire, which then you can compile later to get some feel of what feedback the entire plenary had. Thanks.
Thank you. I am Christine. I coordinate the Parliamentary Forum on Climate Change from Uganda. What I observed that needs to change is the fact that at least all the presenters need to have their presentation portrayed. Because we have different accents, sometimes the communication may not be understood, but when somebody is presenting and then the presentation is visualized, it brings the point home. We understand more. Thank you.
That's a very valid comments, of course. I personally like the presentation. It will make focus upon the subject. But it's different approaches. But also for the comment before that, you can find the previous report of the previous UNEAS structure, agenda, and everything. And many colleagues here also have been attending different ones. So that's what I can tell you. And also, as far as I understand, the UNEP Civil Society will send an evaluation form with many questions electronically to all groups. Before I ask Alexander to comment and tell us about the party, which is going to start at 6 o'clock in the recreation center here near to the gate, I forgot to mention the newsletter. I would like also to thank all the team for the newsletter, the designers, photographer, editors. Some of them are here. And we intend to issue this newsletter daily. And you have seen the structure of the first one, and we are looking for opinion pieces. In the next coming days, we will have coverage of the Green Tent, of the main event during the plenary, our interaction statements, and also to have some interviews. We'll have some opinion pieces. It doesn't have to be long, maybe half a page maximum. It has to bring a point of view of a specific measure group or a specific topic or resolution. So please take this into consideration. It's one of the available channels for us to give our voices to the government so they can understand what we are thinking and what we want. So please, if you have something, please write back to me. I hope that tomorrow the Science and Technology was the first major group that to submit an article. I hope it will go in the tomorrow issue. By that, I will like to Alexander to have a few closing remarks, tell us about evaluation, the party, and so on.
Yeah, thank you, Mohammed. Dear colleagues, I think we had two very productive and also interesting days. For some of us, actually very productive, and I hope also interesting week. Now, this doesn't mean that we are ready, because I think the real work starts next week, when many of you will try to ensure that what you have discussed here, what common statements you have developed, the positions, also have some influence on UNEA. So I will of course not say goodbye, but rather say that I cannot wait until Monday to continue together with my team, working with you to really ensure that the hard work this week has really also some impact on UNEA. So thank you also for the nice words to me and my team. I have to say it's always for us really, we really enjoy also working with you, and I can also say that I have many colleagues that kind of envy me and my team for the interesting work we have with different stakeholder groups. So the date is not yet finished. We will have from 6 o'clock on roughly a party in the recreation center. The recreation center is near to the entrance or exit from this side of UNEP. So when you go towards the exit, don't leave, but stay on the left side. You will see there a gate, and behind that a building. That's the place where the party takes place. We have free drinks and food, of course free within limits, let's say. There's a disc jockey which was sponsored by Pakcha and music. We hope there will be some dancing also. So please, even it starts, it's not yet 6, so rest a little bit, and I really hope that we will see all of you tonight there and have some fun together. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander. If nobody else would like to say something, I would like to close the meeting. And thank you all, and hope you enjoy the party, and see you in the next edition of the Global Major Group Stakeholder Forum, the 19th edition. Thank you.